Alright, so welcome to my Q&A session. So if you're new to my channel, this is the first time you're watching my video or a Q&A session like this. Every Monday I put out a video called Ask Yoon where you ask me your questions, and on Saturday I have a big Q&A session like this where I answer a bunch of different questions. It typically on average like 20 minutes to answer all the questions. And so if you have a question, wait until Monday's Ask Yoon video. So next week will be the final Ask Yoon and Q&A session video. Okay, so if you want me to answer anything, make sure you ask me there. All right, so first question comes from Moviestar Memories, asking me about is the Navy like a high school cliche where you can see all the jocks hanging out with each other, the nerds, and many different cliques and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there are different people that hang out with each other. Some people call it squad, family, whatever. People want to call it, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you like basketball, you would naturally hang out with people who like basketball. If you like to work out and be in the gym, you would naturally hang out with people who like to work out and be in the gym. But the problem would come if there was like a barrier and they say, hey, we're cool, you're not, don't hang with us. But there is nothing like that that I can see and that I've observed so far in the Navy. I haven't seen that to be the case. All right. And the next thing Moviestar asks is, what should you choose, Navy or Coast Guard? So, I tried to look for some good Coast Guard information, but unfortunately, there's not a lot of information out there. But, what I can say best is to talk to a Coast Guard veteran. And I believe that will be the best source of information out there. If you can find somebody who's been in the Coast Guard for 20 years, I would say then you would have the best information out there. But in regards to the Navy, to get like a ideal Navy life, how life would be, I did find a video called the Last Frigate. I'll put that in the link down in the description, and I highly recommend every single one of you interested in the Navy, or maybe not interested in the Navy but you're just kind of observing, or even if you're a veteran, right, just kind of watch this video. It's extremely well made. It doesn't have a lot of views and it's been out for a while, and so I am promoting this video. I highly recommend you check it out. It's extremely awesome. Okay, so next question comes from Doomtrigger, asking me about, is it normal for your recruiter to measure your weight and also tape you and say, hey, lose this X amount of pounds or cut X amount of inches off your waist? So is that normal? And that is yes, because when you go to MEPS, they're going to do the same thing, and if you don't qualify there, you're going to have to come back. So the recruiter, they don't really want to spend the time. If they know that you're going to fail, they're not going to set you up for failure. So they're going to recommend, hey, come back after you have accomplished this, and that way you'll be ready, right? So yes, that is normal, because they don't want to spend 3 hours going to MEPS and hold the process, and then you come back 3 hours later and they already knew you weren't going to pass, and they just kind of wasted 3 hours, right? And they've also wasted your time, because you could have spent that time, working out, exercising, all that kind of stuff. Right, so next question comes from future sailor Lopez, and asking me about how difficult is the process of switching rates. So I have never personally switched rates before, but I know somebody who's switched rate 3 times. They've been in for 16 years. They switched one rate to another. And from what they tell me, it is kind of a difficult process, because let's say I want to switch to MC, mass communications, right? I'm an LS, right? So I'm doing an LS thing. 2 years later, I can switch cross rate, and I want to be an MC. So now, number one, I'd have to study for everything that the MCs learn in A school. And so I would be playing catch up, right? Because MCs, they have a long school. I forgot exactly how many weeks, but they have a long A school. Now I'm playing catch up. I need to know what they know. At the same time, I'm kind of working part-time on both things. I'm working part-time LS, part-time MC, and it's a long process, and you have to strike the rate, taking the test and everything like that. So I have heard it's a difficult process, or maybe not difficult for some people, but it's a long, tedious process. And the best recommendation is just when you first initially pick your rate, just pick a rate that you are okay with, that 60-70% that you will enjoy this rate, because you can't really be 100% or 99% sure, because you can't really get an idea of what this rate is going to be just by reading on a piece of paper, right? So as long as you're 60-70% sure, I would say it's a good decision, in my opinion. Right, so next question comes from Future Sailor Davis, asking me about, what do MAs do? Link down in the description to a MA YouTuber channel. I do not really know too much about what MAs do, so the best advice that I can give you is to ask her. All right. So next question comes from Magtech Blue, asking me about, what are the different symbols for each branch. I looked at it. It's very confusing. They have like many different symbols. Like, Navy, you would imagine like it's just a big anchor, but it's an eagle that has an anchor on it. Two cross anchors would be a Coast Guard, and the most like commonly known Army would be the little black box with the gold star with the white filled in inside. But they also have like different symbols that they go by. So the best advice for that to you, instead of me trying to describe all these different type of symbols, because it'll be best and the easiest thing to do is just Google it, right? So next question comes from Future Sailor Restrepo, asking me about the tattoo policy. So there is a video already made from another YouTuber that I'll just redirect you there instead of me trying to take another 3 minutes trying to explain this policy. Link down in the description to DWK videos, aka Donny. He explained it in his video about the tattoo policy. So next question comes from Future Sailor Edmonson, asking me about how often are swim calls. So I don't really exactly understand what you're trying to ask, Edmonson. But from, if I had to guess, so if you failed your swim test, right, and you have to go back to swimming over and over again. So I'm imagining, or I'm thinking, or I'm assuming that's what you mean by swim calls, to go back to swimming or practice swimming. You go swim every day. If you didn't pass the swim test, you go swim every single day. All right. Next question comes from Future Sailor Lujan, or Lujan, depending on, I don't know if I pronounced it right, depending on where you're from. I can't really tell by the name, but asking me about how many college credits you earn in boot camp and A school. So I don't really have the exact answer to this question, unfortunately, but I know a lot of people who have taken college courses and all this kind of stuff. And from what I can tell you, it's not a lot. It's not a lot. It's not even close to an associate's. Okay. Because right now there are a lot of people that they've been taking like 2 classes per semester, and for like a year now, and they're still not close to a associate's. Okay, so from what I can see, from what I can observe, it's not a lot. I can't really find a definite number for you. All right. So next question comes from Future Sailor Nunag, asking me about any information on being a corpman. So like I said before, I'm not a corpman. Link down in the description to DWK videos. Donny, he's a corpman. He can best assist you in an ideal corpman environment. But from what I can tell you from my experiences with corpman, when I was in boot camp, right, they draw blood from you when you are taking your peanut butter shot. They draw blood. So there was a corpman. I believe, looking back now, he was kind of fresh out of A school, maybe several months in there working, and he was drawing my blood, right? So he was drawing blood from my arm on the vein, and he gets a needle and he puts it in, and then he takes blood out from me, and I'm just looking at this whole process. And what I noticed, he didn't fill it up the whole way. So if it's like this long, he only filled it up to like here, right? So there was like a little gap. And then he's like, all right, cool, man. And then he takes it up to an officer, and the officer says, no, dude, you need to fill up the whole thing. And he's like, oh, crap. And he gets another one. He throws that blood away, I guess. And he gets another one and says, dude, I got to do it again. And I was like, go for it, man. And he sticks it in, and he goes all the way, fills it up. The next day, I wake up, and I have a huge bruise on my freaking arm. I was like, man, where is this from? Did I bump into something? Like, what happened? And I'm just kind of thinking about it. I was like, man, what did I do? Did I hit my arm on something when I was sleeping? And I'm just kind of thinking it over. It's like, oh, it's probably from that drawing blood, because the guy didn't really do it properly. He extracted so much more blood than necessary, right? So don't be that type of corpsman. Right? So next question comes from future sailor Baxter, and asking me about, do I run into BMs or SHs, ship servicemen? I don't really run into a lot of BMs. I've seen them a couple of times here and there. I've heard if you make rank, it's really hard to make rank in being a BM rate. And if you do make rank, you're kind of considered like highly, because it's that hard to make rank, from what I hear. But in terms of SHs, I do see a lot of SHs because they are supply department. I'm a logistics specialist, so I deal with supplies, so I see them often, vending machines and cutting hair, all that kind of stuff. So, and we are also in the same A school. Meridian, Mississippi is the A school for LSs, SHs, and YNs, and all these different rates. And next question comes from Its-Me-Tex, asking me about, if you do enlisted corpsman reserves, will it help you with your medical career? So, like I said, you could ask a corpsman, Donny's video down below, Donny's YouTube channel down below. But from my experiences, I talked to several corpsmen, and I've experienced several different corpsmen before. What I can best say, and what I can best recommend, if you want to really gain the knowledge that you can use in your medical career, I would say pursue being an officer, because I have went to medical several times, and I've been dealt by an officer, and I've been dealt by enlisted people, right? And from what I can see, from my opinion, enlisted people do not have the amount of knowledge as the officers do. Okay, and just from my own personal experience, from what I can see, I believe officers have much better knowledge and better understanding of how to treat someone, and the medical side, than just being an enlisted person. So from my observation, what I can recommend you, my observation could be completely wrong, but I would recommend, if you want to gain the best knowledge, go look into being an officer reserves, right? So next question comes from future sailor Avalos, asks me two things. What do you do when you see an officer or chief? So if you see an officer, pretend I have a cover on, right? Pretend I have a cover on. If you see an officer, you would just salute and say, whatever the day of time is, you would say, good morning, sir, good morning, ma'am, or, good afternoon, sir, good afternoon, ma'am, or, good evening, sir, good evening, ma'am. Or, if it's chief, right, you wouldn't salute. You would just say, you would just walk by and pass. When you're passing by, you'd say, good morning, chief, good morning, or good morning, senior chief, or good morning, master chief, depending on what their rank is, or also what time of day it is. So that's what you would say. All right, so next question, future sailor Avalos also asks, when you are doing the swim test, do you tread or float? So treading, imagine this is water. You just be stationary in one place. This is your legs right here. You just be stationary, and your head will be bobbing up. And floating, you're just like this, right? So you kind of do a little bit of both, because when you are doing the prone test is when you have to float. So you're down, you're floating, and then you're not going to just go up and go back down. No, you prone float first, you float, and then you come back up to breathe and you tread water, making sure that people are away from you. You don't want to be too close to people, because when people are jumbled up against each other, it creates chaos and people fail that way. So you kind of tread water for a little bit, make sure people are not around you, and then go back to floating. So you kind of do a little bit of both, but mostly floating. All right. Next question comes from Buffalo Bills 585, asking me about where you're going to be stationed and did you fill out your dream sheet. So I am already stationed in Virginia. I'm with the ship, and also I am with that ship for 5 years, so I'm not going anywhere other than the ship. But it would have been much nicer if I was overseas by now, but unfortunately that is not the case. So next question comes from future sailor Yos or Yas. I don't really know. After you graduate from boot camp, does the Navy still feed you? And also, do you get BAS? So no, that is not the case. So let's say wherever you go, wherever you get stationed at when you're in the fleet, if there is an operational galley, if where they feed you is operational, they're not going to give you basic allowance for substance, the money for food, like $367 or whatever. They're not going to give you that, right? But if the galley is not operational, right? If you don't have a place where you can eat food for free, then they are going to give you the BAS, the money for you to be able to buy your own food to eat. Okay, but you will not get both. All right. Next question comes from future sailor Avila, asking me about how does leave work. Also, can you go home during A school? So let's say I want to go home right now, right? I want to go home back to Pennsylvania from Virginia. So I would talk to my chain of command, route a chit, fancy word for paperwork, and get it approved. And then, whatever the day comes, my leave starts and I would just head out, right? So, how you would start the leave process is you would tell your chain of command, like I said before, and get the proper paperwork and get it approved. And then when the time comes, when the day that you decided that you want to take leave, you just take leave. And also, can you go home during A school? So I have seen people when I was in A school, if you are close by, if it's not in the other side of the United States. So for example, let's say you are all the way at the East Coast and your home is in California, all the way at the West Coast. It's kind of it's a little hard, right? You can't really take leave while you are in school. But what I have seen people do is if their home is like 4 or 5 hour drive, they can drive. And if they have like a 3-day weekend, they just write out the proper paperwork and say, hey, I'm going to go home for the weekend. It's this far. It's this state, this location. And, that's what they do. They just drive 4 or 5 hours. And then, when the time comes to come back, they come back. Right? So you could go home when you are in A school as long as it's within distance. Right? But you just can't take leave when you are in the middle of A school. All right? So next question comes from future sailor Galvin, asking me about 2 things. Number 1, quality of women. So future sailor Galvin, everyone is pretty and beautiful in their own ways. All right, I'm beautiful, you're beautiful. Everyone that watching this video is beautiful. All right, next question future sailor Galvin asks is, do you feel like sometimes you're surrounded by dumb people? Personally, for me, I have never felt that I have been surrounded by dumb people. Never. Never, never, never. But what I can share with you, I have experienced like a little bit of frustration here and there, where sometimes people who are not particularly great in one thing. For example, let's say you are a basketball player, right? But they put you and they tell you to and ask you to play football. You're not going to excel in football. You're naturally more talented in basketball, but they're telling you, hey, go play football. Right? You're not going to really like that, and you're not going to really excel. And that's what I feel that sometimes happens when I'm working. You know, I know what I excel at, and I tell them and I prove to them by showing them that I excel at this thing, but, you know, they still put you to doing something else. And that's where I see a lot of the frustration sometimes comes in. And you might hear a lot of times you will, you know, people saying, man, I can do this better than they can, or manage better than, you know, my chain of command or whatever. And that is due to, like, some people, in my opinion, from my observation, some people are just not very good managers, and they're not very talented managers. I mean, they may have taken classes on how to manage people, but when it comes to it naturally, some people who are naturally great at managing should be put into that place of management role, but they are put into a different place. But I mean, there's nothing wrong about being put into a management position if you actually want to learn and be able to manage people. And you may not be, you know, great at it, but you're learning and you're trying to become great, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But the frustration comes in sometimes when the people who are not great managers are not doing too well, and then it creates frustration for a lot of people that are being managed because of all the different things and all the different things that are happening, work not getting done, staying long hours, and all this kind of stuff. So that is kind of what I see happening a lot. And that's for me too. Like, I excel at doing like a bunch of different things and managing people at the same time, but, you know, I'm stuck doing, you know, a single task. You know, I'd rather be doing 5 different tasks all at once and floating around and doing different things, but, you know, I'm stuck with doing one thing, right? So I don't feel like I'm surrounded by dumb people, but I do feel people are not being put into position where they excel, and that's one of the key, I feel like, that needs to be taken care of. So that is my opinion. Thanks for watching. This has been another Q&A session, and I hope you have a great Navy day.